Hello, everybody. Ni hao, ni hao ma. We had a nice soundtrack. Now the soundtrack is gone, but it's good so. So welcome to this this first session of the afternoon segment of today's program. Wildlife conservation through sustainable tourism development. This is going to be a panel. As you know, we're trying to make this panel as lively and interactive as possible. It's in order not only to be us talking here, we will also like to engage the audience at some point. Yep. No seating order, but to keep it balanced, exactly, you go to the opposite corner. Feel free to motivate them as they approach the stage. Mr. Dong Gujin, I hope I pronounced the name not in a too offensive way, Secretary General, Guangdong Chimelong Flora and Fauna Conservation Foundation, Mr. Dimakatso Ntsebe, Chief Wildlife Officer, Department of Wildlife and National Parks of Botswana. Welcome. Dr. Pastor Cosma Wilunga Balongwa, Director General of the Congolese Institute for Conservation of Nature of the DRC, the Democratic République du Congo. Merci. Mr. Joe Platana, Director, Creative Tourism Department, Ministry of Tourism of Cambodia, approaching us here. Thank you. Mr. Jianyang Liu, the Research Fellow of the China Tourism Academy. Natalie, her non-Chinese name, there it is, there she is. And Professor Zhu Honggang, Dean of the School of Tourism Management. Where is she? There she is, of the Sun Yat-sen University. Last but not least, Kevin Hannam, Dean of the Faculty of International Tourism, Macau City University. Okay, he's got the warmest welcome. The last will be the first. So, thank you for being here. This almost half moon, we will be chatting away, but don't forget that we have an audience and they will get back to us, pressing us, and what I think is always very interesting with things that we take for granted. But the interesting thing is to speak outside of the bubble. So not because we're here under tourism promoting, in this case, wildlife conservation, or the other way around. I don't know which comes first, really, or which will come first in the future, should we take it for granted that people outside of this room really understand what we mean. Of course, the theory might sound easy to some, not necessarily so. But coming from the World Tourism Organization, of course, we see that there is a mutual reinforcement between wildlife protection and tourism development also looking ahead. I would just briefly ask my colleague Su Jing, the Regional Director for Asia and the Pacific Department at UNWTO, to explain really our perspective from high above, so to speak, and to see, okay, how far do we really meet this when we dig deeper into the ground? Su Jing, thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. Since this is my first time taking the floor, I wanted to also speak on behalf of UNWTO, but in particular the Department of Asia, which I'm heading, to welcome our distinguished delegates both from Africa and from Asia. And very warm welcome to all of you. Marcelo, who is my good friend and colleague, usually being the director of communication, is usually the person who acts as a spokesperson and voicing the messages of UNWTO. So in a way, actually, I'm not in a very good position to voice the position of UNWTO. And rather, he should be the one. But now he's being the moderator, so I will speak probably even on his behalf. Number one. Number two, Marcelo, you mentioned while calling the panelists onto the stage, those who are doing the job and those who are not really doing the job. I actually belong to the latter. I will be more or less on the generalized side rather than on the specific side, and especially comparing with those who are actually working in the national parks, in the theme parks, who are actually implementing what we advocate. However, I think, Marcelo, I wanted to first of all say that indeed, this is one of the first time ever that we're matching these two sides of the same coin in one forum. On one side that we're talking about, we continue to talk about the industry, the travel and tourism industry. On the other hand, how this very industry, we can make the matching with another aspect, which is another good force, a force for good, and that is the conservation and preservation of natural resources. To me, probably the very message that our forum, together with our good colleagues from Chimelong, is trying to send out to the general public and to the industry is basically a message of advocacy. Advocacy in a sense that tourism is a force for good and continue to be a force for good. However, it's like anything else that you might also end up as the victim of your own success. As tourism grows, the cost of this economic success may be causing some negative impact to other aspects of the society. And in this case, that we need to be careful that on one hand, that we wanted to generate economic benefits for the society through the sector called travel and tourism, but on the other hand, what about we use this good force, but for the benefit of also conserving and preserving the wildlife, both the plants as well as the animals. I suppose this is the message in a generalized way, Marcelo, that UNWTO as an intergovernmental organization within the framework of UN, that we wanted to advocate and try to strike a balance between the economic success, but also to be careful on our Earth planet. Thank you, Marcelo.
Thank you. Now that sounds easy. It is not. That's what we're here for. Otherwise, we wouldn't make the effort to be here. We're here hosted by Chimelong, by this all this impressive endeavor, which is in constant motion, like tourism itself. This morning, as you probably heard, it was Chimelong's development was made equivalent to China's development, mirroring what this country has experienced over the past decades. And not only in terms of an economic powerhouse, but in this specific case regarding what's gathering us here. So wildlife protection of of wildlife in general, flora and fauna as well, and how it interacts with tourism. Now, my question, and continuing with the round, of course, to Mr. Dong Zuijing, the Secretary General of the Guangdong Chimelong Flora and Fauna Conservation Foundation. The question would be, when was this always the plan from the beginning, you being here? When did wildlife really become a solid item on the agenda, as also this whole tourism project was developing?
非常感谢这个，因为我不会讲英文呐，我只能讲中文，抱歉啊。这个首先呢，这个非常感谢今天我代表长隆坐在这里，聆听各位专家，还有各位代表这个全球的专家研究们，这里给我们带来了更多的一个支持，那再次向您表示感谢。另外呢，我们长隆这么多年来发展，也得益于全球的动物专家，特别有包括在座的各位的支持使我们长隆有今天的一个发展。回想那个最初的时候，我们把野生动物，包括这个迁地保护和科普教育，作为一个长隆的一个发展的事业呢，这个呢确实有因为当初也是今天我们董事长说的，实现中国人的一个梦想。因为在二三十年前的时候，全球包括我们中国，包括我们行业人员，对我们这个野生动物的保育和教育都是不满意的。大家都期望能在中国建成一个世界一流的一个野生动物园，起到一个真正的野生动物保护、科学研究和教育的目的。那正是我们老板这种民族的责任感，这种精神呢，包括对野生动物事业这种爱心，所以呢，才下大力气，可以说在一无动物，二无人才，也没有任何经验的情况下，在短短几年建立了一个世界级的动物的一个王国。经过不断的努力创新，它最初首创的是大种群的动物保育和酒店式的服务管理结合在一起，使得很快成为了中国一个乃至逐渐发展成为世界一流的一个野生动物旅游王国。那么在2014年的海洋王国的盛大开放，也标志着我们长隆的野生动物保护教育事业真正走上了世界最好的之一，这里边。那么一直以来，这个野生动物的保护和教育，需要我们不断的去创新、去发展。我们在此基础上，目前除了我们长隆野生动物世界，还有横琴的海洋王国，还有我们长隆的飞鸟乐园以外，还有我们的清远的国家级的世界动物种源基地，广东华南地区珍稀动物物种保护中心，还有中国大熊猫保护研究广东基地，还有清远的还有中国的华南虎这个繁育与驯化基地等国家应该承担的项目。所以呢，从这个野生动物保护来说呢，我们间接也在承担着国家的一些公益的事业。关于这个方面，就是我们集团我们苏董事长一直秉承于不断的创新发展的同时，更能有利于资助中国乃至全球的野生动物的保护方面。长期以来，比如说我们资助中国的大熊猫的保护，还有资助我们水中大熊猫、中华白海豚的保护，还有这些中国的一些国宝动物，金丝猴啊、朱鹮呐等项目，也为这些动物的保护实实在在资助，包括开展相应的研究。另外，也和 中国的行业协会，共同来开展野生动物的保护意识、行动等方面一系列这个活动，包括以央视、以各个媒体来发展。那也同时促进了我们长隆的这个迁地保护动物的繁育成果。比如说，我们拥有了全球唯一的大熊猫3胞胎，还有来自澳洲的国宝考拉的双胞胎，还有我们西安白虎的6胞胎等一切的世界成绩。那么现在创新成为我们的 IP， 创新成为我们的 IP， 为动物的未来的发展也创新了一条新的路。比如大家可以看到我们新建的熊猫酒店，在我们园区里有熊猫乐园等一切的发展。那么回到始终，我们不忘初心，这个为了更好的发展野生动物保护事业，所以呢，在2017年的3月3日的世界动植物日，我们就成立了长隆的动植物保护基金会，由长隆出资1000万，以后呢，在每张出售的门票出资1块钱进入的基金会，用于全球的野生动物保护工作。那在这里呢，也深深感谢我们联合国的世界旅游组织徐金主任，我们长隆也资助了100万美金的，做得非常非常的好。而且我们接下来，今天我们董事长出资的基金会出资100万美元，也是更好的资助于全球的野生动物保护与旅游的可持续发展方面，希望我们更做的尽一份力量。我们想通过此，就更加阐述，其实野生动物保护和旅游都是可持续发展。我们长隆愿意在这方面更积极的去支持或者是资助这方面工作，也希望世界这个珍稀的动物能更好的发展，不仅是就地保护，包括我们这个动物园的迁地保护，能世界的国宝、世界的动物得以持续发展下去。再次感谢各位，谢谢。
Thank you. Now we've had the general policy approach, so to speak, the advocacy as promoted by the World Tourism Organization. We have a very interesting, and I'm not sure if unique, but very unique example of private sector leadership through what has been accomplished here in Chimelong. Now, what can happen at the national level? We have a representative from Cambodia here with us, Mr. Chupratana. Listening to this, UNWTO promoting these two sides of the coin, as we coined it, an example of Chimelong, which from the outside had this vision of going and factoring wildlife not just as an asset, but because of its true value. When you come home, when you fly back home, after having seen this and spoken to people, listened to discussions, and contrasting with what expects you back home, how would you assess the challenges for addressing, again, and I go back and it's like a mantra, wildlife protection, conservation through tourism development, the case of Cambodia? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And for the case of Cambodia, before I address to your question, I just opened the general context of the wildlife trend in Cambodia. As you may know, if you go back 50 years ago, Cambodia charted as the most populated wildlife species around the world. It's ranked number 2 from Africa. And in 1960s, Cambodia was called the Serengeti of Asia. So this is the context of our existing wildlife. But unfortunately, after the civil war from 1975 to 1993, so we have two major problems arise on the wildlife, affect to the wildlife. One is the tremendous decrease of the wildlife numbers. And the second is we need to improve the livelihood of the local people after the civil war. So, you know, the people, they need to survive while the wildlife is increased by war. So it still remain decrease of the wildlife in Cambodia up to now. And up to now, they have 58 species that the royal government of Cambodia judged as the critical endangered species that we need to protect. So that's why we have the royal government of Cambodia, we have developed many policies to support the protection. Okay, this is the general context of Cambodia, and for my context as the provincial level, because I'm from the Creative Tourism Department, so one of the critical species that we need to preserve and we need to develop for the tourism, sustainable tourism, is Mekong River dolphin. So have you everyone here have a visit Mekong River dolphin? Only one? So one, yeah, so thank you. So few of us visit river dolphin. While up to now, around the world, there are only 92 river dolphins and located in Cambodia. So if you have a chance to visit Krathi province, and then you can visit river dolphin. So we need to preserve it. And in terms of tourism, you just mentioned it's not to be an asset of tourism. But actually, from our perspective, before I come here, it is our asset. So we need to attract more tourists to visit river dolphin while there is a rare species, and we need to preserve it while it is the critical endangered species.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. I refer to an asset in the terms, of course, not just an item that you sell, that you put on sale.
Okay.
And I think herein lies the challenge. And we discussed this before, because many times, and I think the need for advocacy is there, because there are things that one wrongly takes for granted. We take for granted drinkable water. We take for granted clean air to breathe. And we might even make the mistake to take flora and fauna, so our natural environment, for granted, and in this case not really attributed the correct value that it needs to have, not only for tourism, but for life in general. Now, looking at the other side of the coin, I would like to hear from a representative from Botswana, Mr. Nzebe. He's the Chief Wildlife Officer, Department of Wildlife and National Parks in Botswana. From your perspective, is the tourism sector really aware of this relevance and the importance of wildlife? Or is wildlife, how do we manage for wildlife not to become just another item, just another souvenir that you put on sale and that is consumed, and while it's consumed, not necessarily preserved? Is the tourism sector really on the same page?
Thank you. Yes, I'm speaking for the people that are on the ground and doing the work. For us, or for me, I'll speak for my country. You asked whether tourism is something that we should look at it as something that is very important, or we are just protecting wildlife. I must be honest, I'm coming from a country where my people feel that the tourism industry is not benefiting them a lot. We are protecting wildlife, and we have been doing that for so many years. We have grown quite a large number of elephants in our country. But we know that at the recent COP meeting, we became victims of our own success. When CITES stopped us from trading in stockpiles of our ivory. Now we have the people feeling that they have been protecting wildlife, and the result is that they are being killed by this wildlife because the populations are just too high. And these animals are killing them in their cities, they are destroying their properties, and there's serious loss of life. Just in the last 5 months, we lost 9 people to wildlife. But the communities are now asking, why do we have to look after this wildlife, these huge numbers of elephants, when we are not benefiting a lot from them? So to me, it's not about only protecting wildlife. We need to do a delicate balancing act between protecting wildlife, but also the communities must also benefit from this wildlife, especially from tourism. The other problem that we are facing as a country is that tourism in Botswana is foreign-based or foreign-run. Most of the tourism enterprises are owned by foreigners. Now the communities feel that they are just there to protect the wildlife for somebody to come and take the money and go away. These are the challenges that we are facing as a country. Thank you.
So all I hear, for me, I keep listening as a response, or as if I would have to look at the moment for a connecting thread. Sorry? Something not working, the translation, I think. Is it working? Apparently the translation is the French. Pas français? We don't have French interpretation, I'm not sure. Okay, we can wait a bit. I have some music. Are we on? Is it working again? Yes, no, maybe? Do we have anything? I hear somebody speak, some of the interpreters speaking, but I don't know, probably into Mandarin, Chinese, but I'm not sure if into French. And yes, and only my microphone seems to be working. So do we have French translation now?
整个设备没有了，设备没有信号了。
I'm sorry for this. But this is also part of reality. Here we have panelists from different countries, ministries, government representatives, huge effort by Chimelong, but at times technology is not our best friend. And we have the technical capacity, but the technology apparently is not. Okay. Okay, but through the headset, right? Consecutive? Through the microphone. Yeah. Yeah, into French.
Why don't you speak now? I think it's.
Okay, no, this is fine.
Can somebody try?
Now it's working. Excellent, good, okay. Maybe, yeah, exactly. Maybe just reboot it as I do with my computer. So as I was saying, after listening to the position from the World Tourism Organization, of course from Chimelong, we have Cambodia, and then of course the fourth perspective provided by Botswana. I was trying to look, okay, what does connect all these positions? From my perspective, at least, it's education, because we're talking about advocacy on the one hand, we're talking about internal, if you want, corporate responsibility, which also entails transmitting an idea and winning people and initiative and support over on that side. Likewise with Cambodia, who reminded us, of course, again, that tourism does not exist in isolation from real life. In this case, the terrible consequences of a very bloody civil war, which we're suffering up until today. And lastly, Botswana. Don't forget about the communities, of course, and sustainability cannot be really achieved if it is not shared by the broader population, and tourism has a way to reach that. Now, what does then the other side, the academic side, here next to my side, on my side, Kevin from Macau University, is academia in a position to narrow those gaps, to make a contribution so that each side speaks to each other and they really understand everybody, and then we get all really on a, we found that common denominator to work together? Or is it too romantic an idea?
Romantic, yeah, tourism is romantic. Really, so I think sometimes, but that's why we love it. Yeah, just going back to this, I mean, I've been working in wildlife conservation since the mid-1990s in India, and then I gradually moved away from that into other fields. So I've seen a lot of conflicts over wildlife in different contexts. I've just come back from South Africa as well, just last week, being in a nature reserve. For me, it's all about jobs. And about jobs for the poorest people and the poorest communities who are living in and around national parks, where you're trying to conserve wildlife. And those kind of jobs, it's jobs with training. It's not just a job that's going to last a few years. It's a job with meaning that actually allows a person to develop themselves. And then they buy into conservation. But without that, it's not just, you know, and this whole idea, I mean, I agree with you, the previous speaker, really. I mean, it's also about having an opportunity to develop your own business and have that buy-in in terms of entrepreneurship. And without that, things don't really connect. And if you've got the training there to actually develop that entrepreneurship and back people up and give them the opportunity, then they will buy into it. Without that, conservation for conservation's sake doesn't really work for me in the various contexts in which I've worked, well, India, South Africa, and so on.
So this brings us probably, I don't know, probably, but if we look ahead, we've assessed the situation. We found that raising awareness from education to private sector commitment is key. Continuing with the region where we've been active on the ground in the context of the partnership of UNWTO and Chimelong, Africa, I would like to have the opinion of Dr. Cosma from the Congolese Institute for the Conservation of Nature from the Democratic Republic of Congo. What's your take, especially after this last intervention, in terms of empowerment, social empowerment through education, in the context, of course, of preservation of wildlife with a link to tourism? Again, it sounds, and I don't say this in a disrespectful way, of course, easy. Of course, it's an equation, but of course it comes after, in this case, at least more than 20 years, of course, working concretely in this area. And thinking about your country, and maybe some regional examples. What is your take on this? How difficult is this to walk this talk?
Merci beaucoup. En fait, je vais commencer au nom de mon pays par remercier l'Organisation mondiale du tourisme et son secrétaire général, M. Zourab, qui ont permis que nous puissions être là, moi et ma délégation. Mais aussi, je voudrais remercier le groupe Chimelong. Mon pays est l'un des bénéficiaires d'un appui du groupe Chimelong via l'OMT, et je ne peux que saisir cette opportunité pour dire merci au groupe Chimelong pour ce qu'ils font à travers des pays africains. En fait, la question les deux faces de la même pièce, la vie sauvage et le développement du tourisme, nous savons qu'ils ne peuvent qu'aller de pair. Ils ne peuvent qu'aller ensemble. La réalité que nous savons, c'est que la vie sauvage est aujourd'hui la plus grande curiosité, non seulement scientifique, mais également la plus grande attraction touristique. En fait, cette vie sauvage, pendant les années avant 80, dès le début de la curiosité de l'homme, la vie sauvage était plus dévouée à la recherche, à la science. Elle était consacrée plus pour ça. Mais parce qu'il fallait, tout en protégeant cette vie sauvage, trouver des solutions pour tout ce qui est aux alentours. Il fallait créer le tourisme. Le tourisme n'a été qu'un bras de la société pour trouver le moyen créé par cette vie sauvage et apporter des réponses aux populations, apporter des réponses même à la protection de la même vie sauvage, mais également apporter des réponses au développement des structures qui gèrent cette vie sauvage. Mais il y a une chose qui est vraie. Le développement du tourisme apporte des moyens, apporte des ressources, mais aussi ce développement du tourisme apporte également des problèmes pour la conservation de la vie sauvage. Lorsque l'attraction devient plus importante, lorsque les masses de touristes deviennent importantes, cela pose un problème pour continuer à conserver la vie sauvage. Nous avons, nous, plusieurs cas, et je veux parler du cas de mon pays. Nous avons les gorilles de montagne. Pour visiter les gorilles de montagne, nous avons des principes scientifiques assez élaborés qui sont clairs. C'est qu'il n'y a qu'une équipe de 8 personnes qui peuvent voir une famille de gorilles et pendant 1 heure. Mais si j'ai 3 familles de gorilles et que j'ai 50 touristes et j'ai besoin de l'argent, je ne peux faire visiter une famille qu'une seule fois. 8 personnes pour 1 heure, mais pour faire visiter 3 familles ou 4 familles de gorilles, avec 50 touristes qui tous me payent de l'argent, je suis obligé d'enfreindre, c'est-à-dire d'aller à l'encontre de mes principes scientifiques et faire visiter même 2 fois une famille de gorilles. Dans ces cas-là, le développement du tourisme apporte un problème à la conservation parce que ces familles vont se retrouver devant une difficulté. Une famille, après la visite d'1 heure, a besoin d'aller un peu se reposer et ne pas supporter la présence humaine. Mais on est obligé de le pousser à pouvoir supporter parce que je vais gagner un peu plus d'argent. Et cela pose déjà des problèmes à la conservation. Mais dans le cas de nos pays également, la vie sauvage constitue aujourd'hui une des grandes attractions pour les groupes armés, les bandes armées. Parce que les bandes armées qui viennent dans nos parcs trouvent facilement intérêt à se livrer à la vie sauvage. Dans nos pays, 1 kilo d'ivoire se négocie à $600. S'ils peuvent tuer un éléphant, attraper une pointe d'ivoire, déjà ces groupes armés se font de l'argent. Le braconnier professionnel également. Ces niveaux d'insécurité, un bébé gorille peut aller jusqu'à 100 000 $. Une podocapi va jusqu'à 40 000 $. Donc la vie sauvage constitue aujourd'hui une grande attraction pour les exploitants illégaux et pour les trafics. Et cela pose des problèmes pour les protéger parce que tous ces bandits arrivent à tuer les rangers ou les gardes qui protègent la vie sauvage et on connaît suffisamment de difficultés pour assurer la vie sauvage et même effectivement empêche des fois que le tourisme puisse se développer parce que les braconniers et les autres ne supportent pas la présence des touristes dans le milieu où ils doivent faire leurs actions du braconnage. Mais également, on retrouve certains autres problèmes. Mais nous savons que l'éducation, nous savons que le niveau de la formation, l'implication des communautés est une des réponses efficaces. Mais les communautés ne peuvent être impliquées que quand il y a des mesures compensatoires. C'est quand il y a également des moyens que nous pouvons appeler des réponses alternatives. Quand la conservation peut se concilier avec le développement, afin que le parc, les réserves où il y a la vie sauvage deviennent un moteur de développement. Ça va créer de l'emploi pour les communautés et les communautés peuvent aider maintenant à protéger la vie sauvage. Parce que nos propres gardes seuls ne sont pas capables d'assurer une protection. Nous avons, nous, des espaces beaucoup plus grands. Un parc qui a 3 600 000 hectares ou 800 000 hectares, si je prends le parc national de Virunga. Vous pouvez avoir 400, 800 gardes, donc rangers, ils ne peuvent pas assurer totalement la protection. Mais avec l'implication des communautés, nous avons ça. Et nous, on a développé les approches que nous appelons la conservation communautaire. Ça signifie une rétrocession de 30% de recettes du tourisme aux communautés pour leur donner les écoles, l'adduction d'eau, arranger les routes. Et cela permet à cette communauté d'être attachée au parc et de nous soutenir dans la protection. Et ce sont là les possibilités qui permettent à des niveaux d'éducation, à des niveaux de sensibilisation, à des niveaux de conscientisation et même à des niveaux de formation de cette population, de travailler avec nous pour la même cause de la protection ou la conservation de la vie sauvage et pour produire le développement du tourisme. Voilà en fait la réalité de chez nous. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to take the opportunity of having more than one representative from academia among us. Of course, we were not talking about university level education in this strict sense as was just portrayed, but still, it needs to be factored in this reality in terms of community involvement, empowering communities as well, raising that awareness. Also, when you address tourism education from the university perspective, I would imagine at least, and this question goes to Professor Zhu Hongyang, the Dean of the School of Tourism Management at the Sun Yat-sen University. How much does this very complex social reality to what extent is it really contemplated? Because we started with wildlife conservation and tourism development, and the social element has grown, has absorbed more and more space of this conversation, which is not a bad thing. It's just reality. From your perspective as Dean of the School of Management, in tourism specifically, how do you make sense of this?
Thank you. Very interesting to listen to the diverse patterns of wildlife tourist, the sustainability. And from a research academics point, I think one thing we have been working is we need to listen to different voice because there's no single solutions for this wildlife conservation and tourism. That has to be always bear in mind. So we have to really open our mind to explore the issues rather than focusing on one model and one pattern. I think that's the key. But for instance, like this Africa cases, Asia cases, Cambodia and Chinese cases, we know that tourist and is a way for sustainability. And in this SDG goals, 17 goals, we have so many goals: conservation, well-being, and poverty. And we all know that, in fact, there are trade-offs among all these goals. It means that there is no one single solution to have poverty alleviation through tourism and then conservation. We have the both way. Maybe there's always trade-off and conflict, especially in Asia and African countries. There's always poverty issues, right? And then always other goals that including the gender things. And at the meantime, we have the conservation. So there's always different patterns. So we need to find the local solutions rather than one solution. I really want to emphasize this. Within China, we also respect diverse solutions. In the west of China, because the less population, the wildlife conservation and tourism is very different from this Chimelong case because the context is very much different. So we have to really, to see this. And therefore, we really need to respect the local culture, local institution arrangement, local value of the wildlife, and local solutions. And one thing, I want to refer to one thing, including the education purpose. Now we all emphasize the education in the wildlife tourism, improve the efficiency. But if you look at the education, it's dominated by the scientific knowledge. So the hypothesis is, if we learn the scientific knowledge of the wildlife, we will respect the wildlife. But if we really consider the relationship between this wildlife and human being, it can be religious one, spiritual ones, and friends ones. Though all those are, there's affective, emotional, more stable relationships, but we don't focus on this. So we really focus on scientific knowledge and education. So we have to reflect how to bring all those traditional and emotional, cultural meanings between the human and wildlife into the education to build more sound relationship. But these kind of things are not explored. That is the thing I said, we need to open our mind to find diverse education program, diverse sustainable wildlife tourism to solve the local solutions. That's from education. So in our schools and in our academia, we encourage students to go to the field, to look at the real context, to really see the problems and find the local solutions, to involve the local values, and then have diverse patterns. And then after that, we can have the dialogue rather than focusing one value and one approach.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting perspective from, academia is also very broad, very complex. There is not just one academia. Of course, we have two deans here sitting to my left. But next one, of course, we have a research fellow, which I have the suspicion might have a complementary view on, now that we're, so to speak, in the solutions part, to addressing the challenges of balancing the need for wildlife preservation and sustainable tourism development. What lessons have you come across in your work doing your research, which might be shed some light on what we're discussing. Meaning, of course, going beyond the mere, as the professor just explained, really the scientific approach in terms of the theoretical benefits of wildlife within tourism, going onto the other extreme, the social reality, which might not play along what is being thought of in an office on the 6th floor of the World Tourism Organization. So what might be your approach on this? What concrete examples have you come across which you might be able to share with us?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Actually, the China government has focused more, has made more efforts on the environment protection, and we call that ecological civilization construction. And right now, we are also planning to construct the national park system. Actually, in China, we have about 2,800 national reserves, nature reserves, but they are scattered in different provinces, different areas. So we are now planning to build the national park system to combine these scattered reserves in order to protect the wildlife better. For example, in the northeast parts of China, we have the China tiger and the leopard. But the nature reserve is located in different provinces. So these reserves are managed by different people, by different policies. Maybe in the future, right now we have 10 national park pilots. You see, in China, we usually do the pilot program first. And then after the pilot program has been successful, the government is planning that in the they plan to complete the national park system construction in 2030, and the first national parks will be officially established in 2020, maybe just the year after. The next year, sorry. Yeah. According to the Chinese context, I think the sustainable tourism based on wildlife resources is highly dependent on the balance of interests among different stakeholders, the tourists, the local people, and also the operators, the businessmen. Actually, right now, China is really has done lots of has successful experience in the wildlife tourism in the migrated sites with the wild animals, just like Chimelong Safari Park. We also have several other really successful wildlife sites, like the Chengdu Panda Research Base. Every year they will have 300 million tourist visitors. So this research base is a really good example to develop wildlife tourism. But at the meantime, this base is used for the research, for the education, to raise the to raise the protection awareness of wildlife. I consider this kind of migrated parks, safari parks, or the research base. They are successful examples, but we are still need to explore the wildlife tourism in the nature reserve, in the future national parks. We are still exploring the policies, the management, and of course the personnel training. We are also facing a really, I think, a general challenge in China. That is, we are lack of popular science experts. Usually, we have lots of excellent scientists doing research on wildlife, but they just stay, I think, most of the time in the laboratories. They seldom, few of them doing the popular science education. In this context, the public's awareness of the wildlife protection is need to be improved. I think with more popular science experts in the future, we can better solve that issue. And a good example is in Shanghai. Shanghai government every year there will be a science progress award for the scientists. But this year, they have a new award for the popular science experts. So this policy will encourage more scientists to join in the popular science education. So I think that's the situation of China's wildlife tourism, and I think in the future we can do better.
We went full circle. Su Jing started speaking about advocacy, and now it came back again to raising awareness in another way of advocacy. We have a few minutes. We started a bit late. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience. And when I say questions, I mean questions. Because I know the microphone is tempting, and sometimes one tends to address a complimentary speech, which sometimes is fine, but not always. So is there anybody who wants to address one of our panelists specifically? I think we will need a microphone here. Yes, Oriane, thank you. If you could please just introduce yourself briefly and say to whom you address your question, sir. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Mohibul Islam. I supposed to be the youngest participant in this forum, and because my job is only for 2 years, I am represent Bangladesh. And at first I want to give my gratitude to UNWTO and Chimelong Frank to invite me and give me the chance to say something about my country wildlife situation. Actually, I have no question to the forum, but I want to explain myself, my country, about the wildlife.
Excuse me, 1 minute, please. Very to the point. Okay.
Okay.
So we can factor this in. And then wrap it up. Thank you.
I want to give 2 stories about Bangladesh. One is about Sundarban, the largest mangrove forest in the world. And once upon a time in our country, hunting seems to be a rebel task. And people are in our country in the past time used to make hunt like tiger or other wild species. But the scenery is changing. Scenery is changing day by day. People in our country is so much awareness to preserve the Royal Bengal tiger that is in the Sundarban. And there is a common phenomenon in our country. If Royal Bengal tiger sustain, the Sundarban will sustain, and eventually the Bangladesh will sustain. Because I want to give you an example. In 2007, there is a huge attack from cyclone Cedar in our country. But the first attack is on the Sundarban, the largest mangrove forest. That's why the catastrophe has listened to our country. If the Sundarban is not on the place, the catastrophe was huge, and there will be huge life loss in our country. And I want to give you another story about a river. You know that Bangladesh is a riverine country. There are lots of rivers in our country. And Halda is one of the important and remarkable river in our country. I think that it is not only remarkable in our country, but also in the Asia, because It is the only river in the Asia where natural carp seed production is happen. Natural carp seed production is happen on that river. But in the previous time, people are not aware of the preserving this river. They killed the mother fish, but nowadays the situation is changing because there are lots of drama, movie, or making on the preserving and protection of the Halda river. You know that in the last year there were a movie named Halda on the name of this river that length 2.5 hours. It shows the how to what is the importance of protecting this river. And I think that people in our country are becoming more aware and aware to preserve this wildlife, animal and species. And our government is doing a lot. And I want to request the world community to stress their hand to protect the wildlife conservation in our wildlife species in our area. And I think that this will help a lot to protect our wildlife species, and mostly it will preserve our Sundarban, the largest mangrove forest. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So it's the value chain. If I would have to summarize what really the connecting thread about the two examples that you mentioned, the huge value chain of conservation that we're addressing. I think we have somebody else there in the back. Yes, thank you, sir. A question, please, if possible. Thank you.
Yes, I want to challenge the whole panel. I'm in support of my brother from Botswana. Our policies are more or less the same.
Could you introduce you briefly so everybody knows who you are?
I'm George Manyuma from Zimbabwe. Our policy of biodiversity management policy states that we want sustainable utilization of our resources. And when you look at Botswana, it's a very small country which houses about 125,000 elephants, and their population is about 2 million. And when the communities definitely are not benefiting out of those resources, it becomes a big challenge. And we need to come up with a resolution to say, what's the way forward? Because definitely we were all happy that Botswana is doing well in terms of tourism, but because of that challenge, you'll see that the inflows will dwindle a bit, because if those communities now start harassing tourists who come to Botswana, we'll see a downturn in terms of tourism. So we definitely need to come up with a solution on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we went from examples to a common, challenging something which I think we basically agree on. Any question? But I think this is a good reflex of what we've been discussing. So if I might summarize, and I'm happy that everybody had a chance to contribute, and I think it was very complementary. Again, we went full circle from advocacy. What I take away of this is, of course, if we go to the private sector, and the example of Chimelong, vision and commitment and credibility, that's what remains in my mind after listening to you. Of course, we know there are no simple solutions. It's not a one-size-fits-all policy nor approach. Why? Because we deal with the social basis, and we are irrational by nature. And situations vary and circumstances are always different. We heard of the legacy of the civil war in Cambodia, for instance. We know of how to become the victim of your own success, as we heard from Botswana. And we need to listen more to what's really happening on the ground. The involvement of communities needs to be more than just a slogan. needs to be an active policy element, not only in terms of education, be it from popular science to tertiary and beyond, of course, education and raising awareness, but for true involvement. But this requires, again, policy and involvement and spreading the benefits that tourism can really generate for everybody. And this, of course, is a much bigger policy debate because it has to do, of course, with governance. It has to do with what we heard, the example from China, for instance, the pilot projects and how you develop, of course, by approximation, if you will, a successful project. On the one hand, this is a governance and a political decision on a policy level. But then again, spreading benefits also implies working conditions and education, not only for the next high season on the tourism calendar, but to really empower the population. And tourism is a means for that, for social cohesion, even going beyond tourism sector itself. But this will only work if the education is of quality. This will only work if the work is decent, if the fiscal side of it is also used in terms of streamlining and sharing those benefits. It's jobs, but it's not any kind of job, sustainable jobs. And it's, again, narrowing all those gaps between what we see from a conceptual standpoint, the obvious benefit of preserving wildlife in the context of tourism development, and of course how this helps societies as a whole. In the end of it, I'm not sure if it's about really sustainable, if it's wildlife conservation for sustainable tourism development, or maybe it's even the other way around. Maybe it's really tourism conservation through the development of sustainable wildlife, because if properly addressed, maybe they're really complementary. So I don't know if it's an A-B causal effect, but maybe it's the other way around. We could go on, I am sure, but these panels are really there, or hopefully only to kickstart some ideas and initiate some discussions, which will hopefully go on into the other sessions. I apologize for the technical hiccup in the middle, but I'm glad everybody stayed on and that rebooting the system worked. A big warm applause, please, for our panelists. I thank you all for your participation, and to you as well. And thank you for sitting in. Thank you. Sorry? I need a coffee, too, actually. It wasn't on. Oh, God, maybe it was me. And I switched it off. It was my own. Okay, thank you again. We go on. As you know, the Chimelong Initiative is for Asia, the Pacific, and for Africa. Earlier, we had the contributions of a colleague, Su Jing, the Director for Asia and the Pacific Department. Now, of course, we go back to Africa. My colleague, friend there, I don't see you because I have the lights in my face. Elsa Ganku, she is the Director of the Regional Department for Africa at the World Tourism Organization, and she will lead this next segment. Thank you, Elsa.
Thank you, Marcelo. A very good afternoon to everybody, and I'm very happy to see that we still have a room that is full. It's been a long day for us. I would like to start this presentation, first of all, to echo the words of the Secretary General this morning, as well as our Executive Director, Mr. Zhu, and also my colleague Sujin, in thanking the Chimelong Group for having collaborated with UNWTO and being able for us to benefit, especially for the African member states, with various projects and capacity building workshops in 8 African countries. So the focus of this presentation this afternoon is really to share with you a little bit more what we have accomplished in the Africa region when we started this collaboration with Chimelong. So, as we know, Africa is a continent that hosts 1/3 of the world's planet, of the planet's biodiversity, and is rich with endemic species. 1/4 of the planet's mammalian species and 1/5 of all bird species occur in Africa. And the continent is also home to a rich, diverse animal, plant, and marine biodiversity that provide critical ecosystem services. However, as we know, and we've heard also amongst the discussions this afternoon, the continent is experiencing either a dramatic loss of the biodiversity from the natural habitat loss and degradation, overexploitation of wildlife and fishery species, and the spread of certain non-invasive species, non-native, And the loss of this biodiversity obviously affects the livelihoods, water supply, food security, and it also lessens resilience to extremes events, particularly for people living in rural areas. Now, if we were to agree, if we were to agree that tourism products, services, and value chains, if they are optimized for tourism to spend their money locally, the economic benefits of wildlife tourism can indeed be very important. Wildlife reserves and geographic treasures make Africa unique in terms of what it has to offer for its tourism sector. And about 2 years ago, we conducted a research at UNWTO, which translated showing us that wildlife watching travel represents 80% of the total annual tourist arrivals to Africa. So it's definitely a very important contribution on that sector to the Africa region. And therefore, if we look at it, we can really say that tourism can be a game changer in conservation of sensitive areas and habitat, but if managed in a good way. And one of the key factors that influence sustainability of wildlife tourism is ensuring that local communities benefit from these activities. And I think it came out very strongly in the debate earlier that it is very important that the community feel part and parcel of it and that they're deriving the benefits also from the sector. Now, since 2017, we started collaborating with Chimelong, and we've been able to carry out several areas of technical assistance to 8 countries in Africa. We've held several capacity building workshops, including media trainings, because this is very important as well, ensuring that we are sending out very positive key messages. And the conservation of the great apes, especially in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the tourism, development, wildlife conservation, and sustainable livelihoods, that's in Zimbabwe. And here you can have an idea of all the countries who are, the delegates are here present with us today, that has benefited from these trainings. Now, for the biodiversity capacity building workshop, we conducted these trainings that was aimed at raising awareness amongst the local people on the importance of biodiversity conservation in the destination, and also how to address environmental issues whilst undertaking the tourism activities. The training was also to help the local community and tourism employees to act as champions for biodiversity conservation, and also to train the local communities in managing better the protection of the environment, and also in the management of waste management. And just to make a point here, after we conducted these training workshops last year, we trained in total over 120 participants, and last year all the participants met in the Democratic Republic of Congo for a regional conference whereby they had the opportunity to all exchange ideas and sit together. And I think this is very important because earlier I was talking to Mr. Noel Scott, and we discussed this point whereby the issues that most of the countries are facing in this area of biodiversity conservation, not only in the Africa region, but in other regions, when you look at the issues that come up, they are similar. And sometimes it helps when you make that connection to be able to exchange on the challenges that each and everyone has been facing and how you manage to deal with it. It could be that you can be transferring the knowledge to another that has not been doing it, and sometimes this can go a long way. So that's why we're also encouraging you to use this opportunity here that you've met each other, not just to keep within the region, because even for myself and Sujin, it's the first time we are together conducting an activity, and this is very important for us because the exchange of knowledge, the exchange of experiences is very important. So I'm hoping that when you leave the day after tomorrow, you would have been able to make a little bit more contact with the others, and you can continue the conversation and the exchange as you go along. Here, just a few pictures to illustrate the different training. This one was in Niger, Guinea. And we also touch on media, as I said earlier, and the objective was to provide effective communication skills to both the media, NTOs and NTAs, and tomorrow we have one of our colleagues who will be here in the morning to give another training on how to address these issues. So once again, not to advertise really the session of tomorrow, but at least to encourage you to also be there, and you can stand to benefit a lot from the issues that will be addressed. We conducted several media trips as well, inviting the international media to see what was going on in the different countries in Africa, and that was mainly in the Republic of Congo and Botswana. Some pictures here. We just heard the delegate from Botswana talk about the issues they face with the elephants. Here, the media that attended this workshop. And another project, as I mentioned earlier, it was in regards to the conservation of the great apes in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And this also served to create and enhance synergies between the conservation of the great apes and the development of sustainable forms of tourism in the protected areas. And in this case, if I'm not mistaken, it was in the Lomako region in DRC. And we were able to support also the park rangers with equipments for them to better carry out their conservation task, again working with the communities and develop the different types of sustainable form of tourism. And I'm sure as Mr. Kosma will speak later again, he will give a little bit more details about what is being done. And one of the projects that is still ongoing now is the one in Zimbabwe, where we talk about creating synergies again between wildlife conservation and tourism development. And I think the point was clearly brought out by Botswana, supported again by Zimbabwe, whereby today we are faced with the human-animal conflict, which is becoming a big problem, and we really need to sit together and find a solution in order so that the communities themselves, they see really the benefit of protecting these animals. Again, as you can see in all the different projects that has been carried out, we talk about the conservation part, we talk about working with the communities and being able to take out the economic benefits from all of this, and it's an ongoing effort. And for us, on our side, we are very happy when we have partners like Chimelong to support us in this endeavor. And I believe that we should seize these opportunities and again, as I say, use these forums for us to exchange. But I want to leave you on this note to recall just once again what I said earlier about the research, especially for the Africa region, what it meant in terms of wildlife watching, the 80% that we benefit from just tourists arriving on the continent for that. So it really shows us that there is a real need for us to really sit together and come up with solutions to keep this sector thriving, but also in a sustainable way, as we say. Thank you for your attention. And maybe now I will take the role of the MC and introduce, if I have the... We will have the presentations now by the delegates from the Africa region, specifically on their current national wildlife conservation and sustainable tourism policies. So if I would call again Dr. Kosma, the Director General of the Congolese Institute for the Conservation of Nature of Democratic Republic of Congo, for his presentation. You have a PPT, right?
Thank you. How will I can tell you in French? Merci. C'est juste rapidement, dans quelques minutes, on va essayer de vous présenter ce que nous faisons dans notre pays. La République démocratique du Congo est un des grands pays au centre de l'Afrique, pour ceux qui ne le connaissent pas. Il a au moins 2 345 000 km². Donc il prend depuis l'océan Atlantique presque vers le Rwanda et l'Ouganda. Donc c'est ce pays au niveau du centre de l'Afrique ou l'Afrique centrale. Oui. Okay. Thank you. Alors, le niveau de la biodiversité, effectivement, ce pays fait partie de la méga biodiversité. Si vous regardez la carte de l'Afrique, c'est le seul petit bloc qui est en vert, avec le sud qui a le désert de Kalahari qui monte et le désert de Sahara qui descend, et le bloc qui est appelé le bloc du bassin des forêts du Congo, c'est là où se retrouve cette république, et effectivement, elle regorge la plus grande biodiversité en Afrique, et effectivement aussi dans le monde. Vous avez les différentes espèces de forêts, donc la plus grande forêt tropicale qui fait que de ces pays soit le deuxième poumon forestier au monde après l'Amazonie. Et effectivement, c'est aussi le pays qui a la plus grande réserve d'eau douce en Afrique et qui a effectivement, comme je l'ai dit, l'ensemble de tous ces mammifères. Nous avons sur les 4 espèces de grands singes, au moins les 3 espèces, vous pouvez les trouver en République démocratique du Congo. les 3 espèces de gorilles, donc le gorille de montagne, le gorille de plaine de l'Est et le gorille de plaine de l'Ouest. Vous le retrouvez, le bonobo, où nous avons eu l'appui de Chimelong via l'Organisation mondiale du tourisme, c'est qu'Elsia venait de montrer tout à l'heure. Et vous avez pratiquement les espèces endémiques. Les bonobos, vous ne les trouvez qu'en République démocratique du Congo. L'okapi, vous ne les trouvez qu'en République démocratique du Congo. Ce sont un peu ces animaux dans l'ensemble, les oiseaux, plus de 1096 espèces qui sont rien qu'en RDC et plusieurs centaines d'espèces disons des reptiles et des amphibiens. Vous pouvez les trouver dans ces pays. Voilà un peu l'ensemble du réseau. En fait, nous avons plus d'une centaine d'aires protégées, donc presque plus de 100 aires protégées en République démocratique du Congo. Donc aujourd'hui, nous couvrons 309 540 km², soit 13% du territoire national, avec un engagement de pouvoir conserver, afin de contribuer à la lutte contre le changement climatique, plus de 17% du territoire national. Donc on va arriver à plus de 400 000 km² d'espace protégé pour la République démocratique du Congo. Nous avons 5 sites qui sont des sites naturels, donc qui sont le bien du patrimoine mondial. C'est que nous avons ces grands parcs et c'est tout ce que vous avez tout au long de la partie est de notre pays. Et c'est dans ces parcs où se développe suffisamment le tourisme, quels que soient les défis que nous avons évoqués, des bandes armées et autres. Le Congo a 9 pays voisins, ce qui n'est pas très facile pour nous de pouvoir le protéger en entier, et les braconniers professionnels peuvent traverser pour essayer d'exploiter ce qui se passe et ces ressources naturelles. Quand vous entendez qu'on a à Bangkok, Thaïlande et ailleurs, on a arrêté les écailles de pangolin, les ivoires et autres. Souvent, ça vient de notre pays, malheureusement. Mais qu'est-ce que la valorisation du tourisme? En fait, pour nous, la vie sauvage, comme nous l'avons dit tout à l'heure dans le panel, avec le développement du tourisme, ça apporte en fait un bien-être à notre population, mais également ça nous permet de contribuer à la sécurité et pouvoir résoudre le problème de l'insécurité. Lorsque nous créons les emplois, aujourd'hui, les groupes armés en RDC ne dépassent pas 10 000 personnes. Mais la vie sauvage et le développement du tourisme nous a permis de pouvoir créer des activités de développement. Nous avons créé 3 centrales hydroélectriques et une centrale à plus de 13 mégawatts, ce qui prend déjà 13 000 emplois. Et ces centrales ont produit tout aux environs des industries de savonnerie et d'autres petites industries. Cela permet de pouvoir récupérer tous ces gens qui sont dans des groupes armés et leur donner de l'emploi autant que pour la population. Et dans ce cas, nous réduisons en fait la sensibilité de la guerre, mais nous permettons à la population de pouvoir être impliquée dans le développement du tourisme et de pouvoir bénéficier de retombées du tourisme et ainsi créer un développement. Et nous dirons que ça permet qu'il y ait des revenus du tourisme qui contribuent à la paix, à la sécurité, au bien-être, mais également à la conservation durable de cette vie sauvage. Alors, toutes les attractions existent. Nous avons les visites au volcan. C'est un volcan actif qui demeure aujourd'hui et qui est toujours visitable. Les visites aux gorilles. Nous avons les gorilles de plaine au parc de Kaouzi-Biega, mais nous avons aussi les gorilles de montagne au parc de Virunga, transfrontalier avec le Rwanda et l'Ouganda, mais également l'ascension de montagne qui est la Rwenzori avec du neige éternelle. Donc vous avez de la neige durant toute l'année et développement de certaines loges qui permet aujourd'hui de pouvoir développer le tourisme dans notre pays. Bien sûr qu'en dehors de ces attractions, les activités qu'on est en train de faire, le central et autres, constituent de nouvelles attractions qui essayent maintenant d'être à côté de la vie sauvage, qui est la toute première attraction au niveau de notre pays. Vous avez ces randonnées, vous avez ces pêches, et vous avez ces campings, cette vie panoramique de ces paysages que peut vous offrir la République démocratique du Congo, si vous en faites aujourd'hui une des destinations touristiques. Donc il n'y a pas que le gorille, vous pouvez voir énormément, beaucoup de choses. Tous ces autres grands singes, les chimpanzés, les bonobos, vous pouvez également le voir. L'impact, c'est effectivement la mobilisation. Donc nous avons un appui attiré par nos quelques bailleurs de fonds. Là, on a des amis qui sont intéressés, en dehors de Chimelong que nous avons cité via l'appui de l'OMT, mais on a l'Union européenne, la Banque mondiale, la Banque allemande de financement. On a quelques capacités sur la gestion de valeurs exceptionnelles universelles, parce que nous avons 5 sites qui sont au patrimoine mondial, inscrits comme bien du patrimoine mondial, mais qui sont aujourd'hui sur la liste en péril. Et nous sommes en train de nous battre dans le parc pour pouvoir redorer l'image, apporter des corrections sur les valeurs exceptionnelles universelles. Nous avons cette valorisation de parc au travers de ces revenus et nous avons également l'amélioration des conditions de travail de notre personnel. En fait, d'une manière générale, qu'est-ce que nous avons fait? Ce qui a été un peu notre secret aujourd'hui, c'est que nous avons soumis le parc à un partenariat public-privé. En République démocratique du Congo, aujourd'hui, nous avons fait une ouverture de donner à l'expertise internationale, à l'expertise privée, la gestion de certains parcs. Donc, vous avez 5 parcs qui sont gérés par l'expertise internationale privée, et cela rapporte non seulement de ressources pour pouvoir aider à développer, il n'y a pas de tourisme sans investissement, mais cela apporte également l'expertise. Donc, nous avons suffisamment des experts internationaux qui travaillent avec nous et qui sont en train de nous aider à développer et la conservation de la vie sauvage, mais également le développement du tourisme. Et les deux ensemble sont en train d'apporter au moins ce qui est un emploi, la qualité de vie, la qualité de l'eau, donc le développement et tout ce que nous pouvons faire. Aujourd'hui, c'est le parc qui donne le courant à la population. Parce qu'on a créé 3 centrales hydroélectriques et le courant du parc est le courant le moins cher. Un raccordement est à $150, pendant que le courant des commerçants et autres donne à la population le raccordement à $370. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes en train de travailler pour donner aussi à la population de l'eau, en sorte que le parc devient le vrai moteur de développement de la communauté. Et ainsi, la communauté, notre population, aime le parc parce que ça devient pratiquement l'élément de valeur pour leur développement. Et cela permet de pouvoir transformer maintenant le parc comme une vraie industrie de développement, non seulement pour le développement touristique, mais également pour la conservation de la vie sauvage. Et ça nous favorise les relations avec nos amis, le Rwanda, l'Ouganda, le Kenya, et même attirer beaucoup d'autres investisseurs. Les contraintes que nous avons certes des problèmes. Pour le dire, on a ce problème de groupes armés et de braconnage professionnel qui viennent exploiter illégalement les ressources naturelles et qui favorisent le trafic. Donc il y a un très grand trafic qui passe par chez nous et nous avons besoin de la condamnation de tous ces criminels de conservation, ces criminels environnementaux, ces criminels de la vie sauvage qui sont en train de errer à travers le monde. Donc, que ce soit au niveau de l'OMT, que ce soit au niveau de grands groupes, même Chimelong, nous demanderons les condamnations, de nous soutenir dans les condamnations de ces personnes, afin qu'ils arrêtent cette destruction. Nous avons effectivement le faible marketing, on n'est pas encore atteint les niveaux d'une très très grande industrie touristique, mais nous avons aussi des conditions d'inaccessibilité à certains de nos sites. Nous sommes un pays qui a de grandes forêts, un pays qui a de grandes savanes, de grandes montagnes. Il faut suffisamment de ressources. Notre pays vient de sortir de conflits, donc de guerres. Le budget national n'est pas assez important pour donner le moyen nécessaire en fait d'investir et de pouvoir mettre en place des conditions d'accessibilité dans les sites et même des conditions de toutes les infrastructures touristiques appropriées comme nous sommes en train de les vivre à Chimelong. Là, c'est un niveau le plus élevé. C'est pourquoi d'ailleurs nous proposons même à nos amis de Chimelong, on est prêt à leur donner un de grands parcs en RDC, s'ils peuvent aussi essayer d'apporter l'appui et de les transformer comme ils font ailleurs, comme font d'autres qui transforment d'autres parcs en RDC. Nous avons déjà donné 5-6 parcs. Nos amis belges gèrent le parc de Virunga, le Britannique gère le parc de Garamba, et il y a un type, presque 5-6 pays au monde qui gèrent 6 parcs dans notre pays, afin de pouvoir multiplier les éléments. Je voudrais terminer par là, pour dire qu'on a un problème pour lequel nous demandons aussi l'appui de l'OMT, c'est cette limitation d'accès au visa. Si on peut avoir un mécanisme de standardiser les conditions principales des facilités de visa, ça pourrait être assez facile. Nous avons un pays qui a le visa le plus cher presque au monde, et il n'est pas très facile de concilier cela avec le développement du tourisme. Et effectivement, nous avons cette limitation du marché international. Voilà un peu ce qui constitue le gros de la présentation rapide dans quelques minutes de notre volonté de développer le tourisme dans notre pays et de pouvoir vous aider, vous appeler à venir visiter la République démocratique du Congo au moment où vous le voudrez bien et vous ne serez pas déçus. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cosma. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Cosma. Now I would like to call up to the stage Mr. Jove Kapochichi, who is a representative of the Direction of Tourism Development of the Ministry of Tourism of Benin.
Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles et Messieurs, bonsoir. Je suis Sosten Kapochichi Gervais, en service au ministère du Tourisme, de la Culture et des Arts du Bénin. Je suis précisément à la direction du développement du tourisme. Alors, ma communication portera sur la politique de conservation de la vie sauvage et de développement du tourisme durable qu'a du Bénin. Alors, le Bénin est un pays situé en Afrique de l'Ouest. Il est limité au nord par le Niger, au nord-ouest par le Burkina Faso, à l'est par le Nigeria, à l'ouest par le Togo et au sud par l'océan Atlantique. Le tourisme aujourd'hui est devenu une priorité pour le gouvernement béninois qui cherche coûte que coûte à le développer. Et conscient du fait que le développement déséquilibré et non durable peut entraîner des conséquences très néfastes, le gouvernement a choisi de développer le tourisme durable intégré. Et au cœur de ce tourisme, nous avons précisément la conservation de la vie sauvage et le développement durable. Alors, toute politique de développement du tourisme durable et de conservation de la vie sauvage nécessite, pour être réussie, pour être durable, qu'on ait des cadres de référence. Alors, au plan international, la politique de développement du tourisme durable et de conservation de la faune, de la flore et des sols s'est inspirée du Code mondial d'éthique du tourisme, de la Charte internationale du tourisme durable, et il existe également des tests réglementaires de l'UEMOA, Union économique et monétaire ouest-africaine. Nous utilisons également ces tests et la déclaration de Kinshasa sur la conservation de la biodiversité et la protection de l'environnement en Afrique de l'Ouest et centrale du 5 avril 2018. Alors, au plan national, nous avons la loi 98-030 du 12 février 1999 portant loi cadre sur l'environnement. Et nous avons la loi numéro 20-2007 du 23 août 2007 portant protection du patrimoine culturel et du patrimoine naturel à caractère culturel en République du Bénin. Donc ce sont les cadres de référence de la politique de conservation de la vie sauvage et de développement du tourisme durable. Les objectifs de la politique et leurs domaines d'action respectifs. Alors, nous savons que le développement durable a 3 piliers fondamentaux. Le pilier économique, le pilier social et le pilier environnemental. Nos objectifs cadrent avec les objectifs définis par l'OMT dans un guide intitulé « Guide à l'attention des décideurs ». Nous avons choisi de suivre ces objectifs. Alors, au plan économique, nous visons la viabilité économique, la prospérité, la qualité de l'emploi, l'équité sociale. Au plan social, la satisfaction des visiteurs, le contrôle local, le bien-être des communautés, la richesse culturelle, et au plan environnemental, l'intégrité physique, la diversité biologique, l'utilisation rationnelle des ressources, la pureté de l'environnement. Alors, comment mettons-nous en œuvre notre politique? Nous avons choisi le processus par lequel il y aura une synergie d'action entre tous les acteurs du développement durable. Alors, sur ce plan, nous avons l'État qui joue un rôle régalien. L'État réglemente le secteur et fait appliquer les règles, les sanctionne également. Nous avons les collectivités locales. Nous parlons des communes ici qui sont également chargées de la mise en œuvre des prérogatives de l'État au niveau local. Nous avons les communautés. Nous faisons également participer les communautés à la conservation de la vie sauvage. Nous avons les organisations de la société civile, les ONG, les associations, qui procèdent à des questions de sensibilisation, qui essayent de faire le plaidoyer, le lobbying, pour que la conservation de la vie sauvage, le tourisme durable soit une réalité. Nous avons les opérateurs touristiques privés. Alors, ces opérateurs proposent aujourd'hui des produits et services touristiques durables, des services touristiques qui ne vont pas du tout altérer l'environnement ou détruire le patrimoine culturel ou la faune ou la flore, etc. Nous essayons à leur niveau de les sensibiliser pour que ça soit ainsi. La presse spécialisée aussi, pour la médiatisation des différentes initiatives et activités. Nous avons également les touristes qui font des visites et découvertes responsables. Nous essayons de les convaincre pour que ces visites soient responsables. Et les partenaires techniques et financiers qui financent nos projets, renforcent les capacités des ressources humaines, etc., etc. Alors, quels sont les succès de la politique? Aujourd'hui, les parcs et aires naturelles sont de plus en plus protégés. Nous avons en particulier la gestion du parc de la Pendjari qui est confiée à une ONG sud-africaine, APN, African Park Network, qui aujourd'hui s'occupe rigoureusement de notre parc. Donc c'est une gestion participative. APN essaye de gérer le parc avec le Sénagref, Centre national de gestion des réserves de faune du Bénin, et la Direction nationale du parc. Et à ce niveau, les grandes réalisations enregistrées au niveau de ce parc sont les suivantes: la construction d'une base opérationnelle, le recrutement, la formation et le déploiement de 100 agents rangers, des éco-gardes, l'acquisition d'un avion URL et comment dit-on, Cessna pour la surveillance aérienne du parc, l'ouverture et aménagement des pistes dans le parc, capture et pose de colliers aux familles d'éléphants et de lions, réalisation de l'inventaire phonique. L'inventaire phonique a été réalisé, couverture intégrale du parc au réseau VHF numérique, etc., etc. Alors, ce qui nous a beaucoup aidé, c'est la formation OMT et Chimelong. Ça nous a beaucoup aidé et ça a permis aujourd'hui de changer les mentalités. Ça a permis de sensibiliser la population et les questions de braconnage, les questions de transhumance, etc., sont en train d'être résolues progressivement. Pour terminer, je dirais que le Bénin a très tôt compris les enjeux d'un tourisme durable et de la protection de la vie sauvage, raison pour laquelle il a élaboré et met en œuvre une politique fédératrice des différents acteurs du tourisme autour des axes, objectifs et domaines d'action précis. En somme, cette politique permet d'influer sur les actes suivants: la minimisation des impacts négatifs du tourisme sur la société et l'environnement, la maximisation de la contribution positive et créative du tourisme aux économies locales, à la conservation du patrimoine naturel et culturel et à la qualité de la vie des populations d'accueil. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cappuccici, for the presentation. And lastly, for this session, I would like to invite Mr. George Manyuma, the Director General of the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management, to make his presentation.
It's not moving? There's no presentation, huh? Good afternoon to you all. My name is George Manyuma. I work for Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife. I think I just want to give you a perspective of wildlife conservation and sustainable tourism policies for Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is in Southern Africa. And as national parks, we have 11 national parks in Zimbabwe. Our land mass is 13% of the whole of Zimbabwe. We also hold 5 million hectares of land that we run as parks where we've got our wildlife. We also have 13% of land that is run by private sector, which also house wildlife. So all in all, we've got 26% of land mass in Zimbabwe that houses wildlife. Zimbabwe value proposition in the tourism market is based on scenery, wildlife, as well as the culture. When you look at the categories of tourism, we've got mass tourism, we've got sustainable tourism, as well as virtual tourism. But for Zimbabwe, our biodiversity management policy on wildlife is that of sustainable utilization, in which regard we practice consumptive and non-consumptive tourism. Key attractions in Zimbabwe include the Victoria Falls, which is a World Heritage, Hwange, where we've got close to 45,000 elephants, Gonarezhou, Matopos, Nyanga, Matetsi, and I'll also include Bana Pools, which is also a World Heritage. Major wildlife species are the big five. We are proud that in Zimbabwe, we've got the big five. That's why you can see me putting those pictures up there. We are second largest in terms of head of elephants, following my brother there, Botswana, with 125,000. Key source markets for tourism is the Americas as well as Europe. But Asia is catching up because of the population of Asia. I think we are doing quite a lot of sales blitz in Asia for us to also get that market. Sorry, technology is not on my side. What's happening? What's happening? You do it from there. Thank you. The country's community-based tourism enterprises are primarily channeled through the Communal Areas Management Program for Indigenous Resources, Campfire. I think why Campfire was created is because we also wanted to empower our communities in the sense that they should also get employment from the projects that we'll be doing bordering the protected areas. Zimbabwe has also come up with specific animal species policies, and these include the elephant, rhino, lion, wild dog, cheetah, and leopard management policies. Why these policies? It's because we want to make sure that we protect the wildlife. And because of these policies, we've also seen an increase in terms of those species that I've spoken about. And these species are the ones which will then support in terms of our sustainable tourism. Thank you. You can move. Zimbabwe wildlife policy objectives are to ensure the equitable and efficient allocation of opportunities for Zimbabwean citizens to participate in the wildlife industry, to issue all permits required by law for wildlife-related activities and regulate access, trade, utilization, fisheries, and research, to regulate trade in wildlife products so that illegal products do not enter the market and prejudice legitimate trade, set standards and issue appropriate permits and licenses to commercial wildlife operators, including professional hunters, professional guides, wildlife capture units. Why permits, licenses, and control of trade is because this will also assist us in doing anti-poaching activities. Because if you don't regulate, people just willy-nilly go and kill the wildlife. We also encourage investment in the wildlife areas. I liked my colleague from DRC. He really marketed DRC well in terms of investment. We also do the same. We are open for business, as my president always says. We also promote private sector in coming up and set up businesses in our national parks. Investment in the wildlife areas is guided by leases and investment policies. In our leases, we also have conditions which are sustainable to tourism. You don't build permanent structures in our parks. We encourage green energy. We also encourage the recycling of waste. Quite a number of the greening process that we also do because we want people to be regulated on that area. Thank you. You can move. Market certain key wildlife products. We also promote communities doing curios that they will then sell in the curios shops that we have in our parks. We maintain a statistical database on all wildlife-related activities, including tourism, trade, and sport hunting. We also undertake research in wildlife and coordinate the research activities of external wildlife researchers. We also carry out extension and public relations work outside the estate in collaboration with other government and non-government agencies. This is where UNWTO and Chimelong come in. I think as my sister Elsia highlighted that we've got a project that is happening right now in Cholocho Wange area where we are collaborating with communities in terms of educating them on conservation of wildlife. We also encourage the establishment of representative association to develop the wildlife industry in a manner which does not foster monopolies. Yes. Economic significance of wildlife tourism. We cannot talk of wildlife without economics. Assets with no economic value are costly to preserve and will always play second fiddle to others. tourism is benefiting the economy through adequately financing conservation. You realize that most governments, they don't have the capacity to fund conservation. So we do quite a number of commercial activities in our parks to sponsor conservation. And we also are assisted by donors who are the non-governmental organizations to also fund in terms of looking after our wildlife. A one-size-fits-all approach to wildlife utilization is ecological suicide, in which regard Zimbabwe shall continue to conduct both consumptive and non-consumptive tourism to effectively finance biodiversity protection, preservation, and management. Communities living with wildlife cannot conduct agriculture for subsistence, and therefore consumptive tourism is a key alternative, as it is a sustainable, low volume and high value tourist activities. This is where we support the communities. We definitely need to work with communities. Transboundary conservation activities on Zimbabwe's borders aim to improve the tourist experience, enhance the size of wildlife habitats, while ensuring coexistence with communities therein. The largest of such in the world is Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, which is home to the largest population of elephants at 260,000. Going forward, sustainability of wildlife tourism in Zimbabwe hinges on the use of scientific
resume the next session, the Destination Practices Asia and the Pacific. Unlike my good colleague Elsia, that she did a presentation on the few activities that we carried out in the region of Africa using this initiative sponsored by Chimelong. I'm not going to, being the regional director for Asia, I'm not going to make a presentation summarizing some of the activities that are happening in Asia and the Pacific. But instead, during the implementation of this very joint initiative that we have been doing with Chimelong, at one stage we thought, how do we not only walk the talk, but we also wanted to do something more concrete. And one of the ideas came out is to produce a special report. And that report will provide some practices in the Asia and the Pacific region, but more importantly, through these practices, what we intend to do with the kind support of Chimelong is to see these actions on the ground whether they have any implications for policymakers in particular, as well as for operators. And in this context, I wanted to introduce our next speaker as the prelude to the Asia session, the reputed Professor Professor Noel Scott, who has been very well known in the circle as Professor of Tourism, but more importantly, he has been working also in the Griffith University of Australia, where the school has been leading the efforts on the subject of conservation and preservation in the tourism sector and the overall sustainability issues. Now I have the great pleasure of inviting Professor Noel Scott, who is now professor in the Sunshine University of Australia, to take the floor. Let's give a big applause.
Hello, or as we say in Australia, g'day. So you have to say, everyone has to say g'day. Oh, thank you. Mr. Shujing and UNWTO, my good friend Oriana, who I've worked with for a long time, as well as the representatives of Chimelong. It's wonderful to be here today to talk about this report that I've been undertaking. But before we do, I want to give everyone some energy, all right? So let's all stand up. Come on, stand up. Everyone has to stand up, come on. And then we're going to say, Guangzhou is the best part of China. Oh, in Chinese would be good. Okay, so you ready? Hands up. Guangzhou is the best part of China. All right, thank you. Okay, so that's just to get you awake. I want to talk to you about this project that I was lucky enough to be able to undertake. The project is about understanding throughout the Asia and Pacific region what is happening what is happening on the ground. Are there good examples? Or in fact, how do we understand what good practice is? And so this project has been worked upon in conjunction with an organisation called Wildlife Tourism Australia. So Wildlife Tourism Australia is an organisation that encourages good practice in wildlife tourism. So what we did was, first of all, I want to recognise that the funding has come from the Chimelong Group, and so I deeply thank you for that opportunity. What the report is about providing evidence of the positive impacts that wildlife tourism policies and businesses are having in the Asia and Pacific region. So what do we mean by wildlife tourism? Well, we focused only on non-consumption wildlife tourism, and also where the focus is on viewing the animals, and perhaps so minimizing the impact on the animals while providing customers with a wonderful tourism experience. So that was our criteria for selection of good practice. But we also developed a checklist, which might be useful for participants, as to what good practice in wildlife tourism viewing looks like. So there will be a report published, I think, in about December, which will have criteria for you and information for you to assess your products and your wildlife when you're looking at wildlife tourism in the wild. So we're not looking at captive wildlife tourism, we're looking at it in the wild. So some key points. Firstly, wildlife tourism in Asia and the Pacific, and arguably around the world, will grow. So we're not thinking that this is a static market. You're looking at something which is going to grow in demand. That's good, but it also means that therefore you have to plan for it. You have to plan for growth and be able to manage the growth of tourism and its impact on animals. So the good news is there will be more money from wildlife tourism. The bad news is, or the responsible position is, you need to work out how to manage it better. A recent report that came out after we began this project is that roughly 44% of, Asia and the Pacific contributes about 44% of wildlife tourism around the world. So that may be surprising for some people. Perhaps our delegates from Africa will be thinking that wildlife tourism is very important in Africa, and it is. The issue is that in Asia and the Pacific, you have the population base to mean that wildlife tourism is very important, okay? And of course, along with that population base, such as in Bangladesh, goes pressure on the environment. So how do you manage that? So you've got an opportunity, but you've also got some issues. And so the other thing that's interesting is that the market is changing. And one of the things that has become very important are issues of animal welfare. So as well as community involvement and environmental quality in terms of how people are choosing where to go. So what does that mean? That means you can't just think about the animal. You have to think about the animal and their support, or the support that the local community gives to them. And also, oh God, I've done it again. I'm sorry, thank you. And also how well you are protecting the environment in general, okay? And tourists are becoming very aware of those things. So they want wildlife tourism. It's a wonderful thing for a country or a region, but you need to do certain things to encourage people to come. No, could you swap that? Can you change it? What we found in the report, and even today, as I've heard from people, from other delegates, there's a wealth of wildlife tourism product in Asia and the Pacific. I think, luckily, I've got your dolphins. So there's the dolphins in the Mekong, for example. There's bird watching. Bird watching is a big market across Asia and the Pacific, and in fact around the world. Coral and fish. Of course we know that people like diving, people like swimming, coral reefs are important, but that's wildlife tourism. Dolphins. So dolphins in the Mekong River. Elephants. There is, in Sri Lanka, I was lucky enough to see animals, the elephants in Udawalawa. Where's our... Yes, so I'm not sure if I pronounced it properly. Yes, so it's a wonderful place. Some overcrowding, but generally excellent. Komodo dragons. Where's our representative from Indonesia? Yes, so Komodo dragons is a big attraction for people in Indonesia. The leopards. So I'll show you a video later of seeing a leopard walking along a trail. Fantastic experience for me. Orangutans in the jungle. Sharks. In Japan, you can go diving with sharks. Who wants to do that? Anyone want to go diving with sharks? Oh, good. You can go first. Stingrays, tigers, tree kangaroos in Papua New Guinea, turtles, whale sharks, whales. It goes on. And over the past year, I've been lucky enough to see some animal wildlife. I've been able to see some wildlife and things that I will never forget. So wonderful experiences right the way across Asia and the Pacific. Thank you. Wasn't me. So here are some examples. I've just selected a couple, and I'm not sure if you can see well. The top left-hand corner. The top left-hand corner, they're called Tasmanian devils. So they're from Australia. Very aggressive. Thank you. These are elephants, of course. This, wildlife. This is a tourist attraction from people looking at dragonflies. Right? And also looking at glowworms. Is that wildlife tourism? Well, yes, it is. It's about seeing animals, including insects and plants, in the natural environment. Okay. This one, I don't know. Are you able to click on the leopard there? So this is an example I took myself. So this magnificent creature just walking along the road, and then he sees something to eat and goes and gets it. So not just animals, but of course on the bottom right, it's about interpretation and the local people, in this particular case from Australia, who are interpreting and telling people about the natural environment and telling people about their animals and how they live with them, which is another extremely valuable resource. Please. So we'll go on. So we selected a number of case studies. In the report, there's 13, but the issue is there's many more. There's many more good practice case studies from across Asia and the Pacific. I didn't have enough time to be able to look at them all or see them all, but we also then got a scientific committee to look at those case studies, and so we're pretty sure that these are good practice. Not best practice, because you can't get best practice, but these are all cases which are exhibiting many of the characteristics of a good, responsible tourism experience. So the examples, so I'm from Australia, so I've got to have one from Australia, right? So that's Lady Elliot Island. Chongming Island in China. Chongming, that's in the Shanghai Delta. It's a place where people have created a sanctuary for migrating birds that come from Siberia, Korea, China, and all the way down to Australia. So it's a wonderful facility that's educating people about these birds. The giant panda breeding base, very interesting facility. It's one, I didn't understand so much about it before, but it's part of the Chinese government's initiative to protect their national symbol. And I think, therefore, it's a very important initiative, and it's connected to the breeding, training, and rehabilitation of pandas into the wild. So it's a very interesting facility, which is also helping people to understand why you need to protect animals. This next one, this is a man's name, Alex Wasserman. He is working with his local community in Papua, Indonesia, to protect animals so that they can earn money from bird watching. Right? So they have the bird of paradise. Wonderful. And this man spent a year looking to find out where he could see the birds on his tribal land, and then built facilities for it. So he's encouraging his local community, working with WWF actually, to protect the animals. And so it goes. The Orangutan Lodge in Malaysia, wonderful facility for viewing orangutans. Misul, I'll give you an example of that in big fish expeditions where you can swim with sharks. I'll give you the the contact. Yes. Borneo Ecotourism, wildlife of the Mongolian steppes. So this is where you can undertake a scientific expedition to learn more about and help to preserve animals in Mongolia. Amazing. Sicklebill Tours, which is a bird watching tour, very specialist bird watching tour in Papua New Guinea. This one, Mangrove Paddle Boat Association. This is in the Philippines, and they have developed a wonderful tour of the mangrove environment around, I think it's near Palawan National Park, and the locals are really benefiting from tourism. Arunya Vacations is from Sri Lanka, yes, and so this guy who runs this company is a biologist and has spent most of his life researching animals, provides incredible interpretation for individual tours around the country. And the Mahoots Elephant Foundation. So in Thailand, elephants are a very contentious issue, and these people are working with the local people to develop attractions which are run by the local people to see elephants. So, just as an example, this is a range of the type of products or experiences that you can get in Asia and the Pacific. So we also did a few smaller studies. In Brunei, there's a Ulu resort, which is very interesting. One of the interesting things was some people in China who are looking at using augmented reality in national parks. Good? Bad? It's good in terms of interpretation. Maybe it detracts a little bit from the experience of nature. So it's interesting. China, spring flowers in India. So you can go to the northern part of India and see the flowers. So flowers and flora are an important part of wildlife tourism that you can have as a tour. And Sucheon Bay in Korea, another place where the migratory birds are protected, and which has become a very popular tourism facility. Just as an example, Misul Eco Lodge. This is in Indonesia, near Raja Ampat. I don't know if you know. It's on the west side of Papua in Indonesia, so in the eastern part of Indonesia. And it's in what is called the Coral Triangle. How am I going for time? Am I going okay? Coral Triangle. And so that's the richest part of the world for the coral and fish species. So this is a small eco-lodge catering for about 40 guests. It's a partnership with the local people. It's an all-exclusive resort. They feature dive and snorkeling tours, but it's been featured by Sir David Attenborough in one of his documentaries. The point is that people are very interested in nature and the environment. So if you can be seen to be protecting nature and the environment and wildlife, people will love you and they will pay money to come to your resort and see it, okay? So don't think about the environment as a negative. The environment is a very positive thing for your business if you're in wildlife and tourism, please. So what are the key issues? We came out a lot, and you'll have to read the report. But firstly, it's no good now just saying we want wildlife tourism. You need to plan for it. Many governments are doing that, but you have to be proactive. You have to say, our national parks will get more people. How are we going to manage that? Right? So you have to plan. Oh, another thing, you can't just plan for this place because birds and animals, they move around. So maybe you need to be planning for wildlife tourism at a regional scale to see where your tourism fits in, how it's connected to your national parks, and how it's connected to cities and where the pressures are coming from. In some countries around the world and in Asia and the Pacific, people are encouraging wildlife watching not in national parks, but on freehold land, on land that is owned outside national parks. And that's a good thing. It takes some pressures off the parks, but allows the people who own the land nearby to protect the environment and to make money. Anticipate growth. Supply and demand. So in some national parks, wildlife tourism is becoming more popular. Therefore, you are experiencing overcrowding. Managing overcrowding is a really tricky issue. So a lot of that comes back to tour guides and making sure they are well trained and perhaps using a code of practice. Animal welfare is important. I'm running out of time. But certainly, thank you. One of the things that's not happening so much in Asia and the Pacific is linking wildlife to the destination. So Komodo is a good example. There is a strong link between this animal and people visiting. Maybe you could say that about orangutans in some parts of Indonesia, but in many places, the destination brand is not well connected to animals or to nature. In wildlife, there are a number of niche markets, bird watching, scuba diving, and so on. And developing those requires some special characteristics. And that may be something where people can work together across different countries. Social media, of course, is the key. And use storytelling. So tell some stories about these animals. But of course, the last thing, and possibly the most important, is involve your local people. Get the local people involved. Thank you. I'm running out of time, so thank you very much for that. And I'd be very happy to talk to you afterwards about the report. and which will be coming out in December. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noel Scott, for this presentation. And now I am going to call the first representative from Asia to make a presentation, Mr. Chandana Suryabandara, who is the Director General of Wildlife Conservation of the Ministry of Tourism Development, Wildlife and Christian Religious Affairs of Sri Lanka.
Okay, thank you for the organizers for allowing me this time slot. And I will be presenting Sri Lanka's National Wildlife Conservation and Sustainable Tourism Policies and what are the practices that we are implementing in Sri Lanka. Throughout the presentation, I will deal with policies and what are the resources available for conducting this kind of activities and practices that we are implementing in Sri Lanka and barriers and hurdles that we are facing when we are implementing those practices and what our future expectations or goals. So starting with the policies, we have wildlife policy which covers the sustainability and wildlife conservation. And we have Sri Lanka's tourism strategy that covers again the wildlife sector, the tourism activities in the wildlife sector. Above all, we have sustainable development goals formulated for Sri Lanka. This will encompass all the policies and with this policy background, we have legislative tools to be implemented for the wildlife sector, forestry sector and tourism sector. Those are involved in wildlife tourism in Sri Lanka. Then as far as the resources are concerned, I will consider protected areas, biodiversity and culture and heritage of Sri Lanka as the resources for this aspect. When we consider the protected areas, we have nearly 30% of the country's territorial lands have been allocated for protected area network. There we are conducting our tourism activities. We are allowing the people to go inside the protected areas in the national parks only. And when we consider the biodiversity they are in the protected areas, we have very good biodiversity. When we consider its specialties, it is heavily characterized by the endemism. And we have very good ecological diversity and therefore the genetic diversity understood. Then when we consider the culture and heritage, it is inherited to Sri Lanka for 1,000 years. So with all these aspects, protected areas, biodiversity and culture and heritage, we have a full-scale resource base for wildlife tourism. Then what are the practices that we are, basically these practices, I will emphasize on the wildlife tourism activities. So these are non-consumptive kind of practices that we are practicing in Sri Lanka. And we have allowed private sector investments coming into the sector with some limitations. And benefits are to be available for the fringing communities. So these are the practices: safaris, marine mammal watching, hiking, camping in the protected areas, lodging inside protected areas, and boating. Those are the practices that government sector, public sector is involved with the participation of private sector, and all are practiced bearing the sustainability in mind. So when we are implementing those tourism practices, we are facing some difficulties: heavy visitation, unequal visitor attraction, lesser awareness. For those, we are trying to find out solutions. For heavy visitation, we have implemented e-ticketing and entry quota system for the different protected areas, zonation within the protected areas, and spatial and temporal regulation for the visitors within 1 day, and fallow seasons, and to distribute the visitors throughout the protected area network. We are trying to product diversification, strategic investment, to strategically decide on investment plans for different protected areas, and strategic marketing to popularize some protected areas with some emphasis. And due to lesser awareness, it is damaging to the wildlife sector. So now we are emphasizing on, focusing on interpretation and visitor awareness building, and operative stakeholder training, that is for the jeep drivers and the safari jeep owners, interpreters. Those people are being made aware about the value of wildlife conservation, and communication strategy that we are implementing will be supportive for the making the people aware, but we have to consider the monitoring and research aspects, because vigorous monitoring and detailed research will definitely support these remedial actions. So for the future, we are trying to convert those challenges, the visitation beyond the capacity and new investment models, as opportunities. And we are trying to get the contribution of more and more stakeholders through diversified products, new destinations, and varied stakeholders. And our focus is to effective conservation through sustainable development goals that we have formulated for Sri Lanka. For that, we have consistent, updated and researched policy background, and definitely and throughout we are in the process of standardization of those practices, and adaptive management we are involved in, and vigorous monitoring. Those are the practices that we are, that is the situation in Sri Lanka. To see these are happening, visit Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Surya Bandara. And now I would like to call Mr. Wadi Hasmi, the co-founder of the Conservation Response Unit in Aceh, Indonesia.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Minister of Tourism of Republic of Indonesia, I would like to extend our high appreciation and congratulate the Chimelong groups and the Secretary General of UNWTO and Asia Pacific Director, Mr. Zhu Jing, and the government of Republic of China, government representative from Guangdong province, and the excellent for the excellent arrangement in this and making this international forum on tourism a successful event, and a special thanks to Orient for all the helps and support. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, member from member countries. The government of Indonesia is still in commitment in putting tourism as one of the main priority sectors supporting the nation economy. We are now working hard to accomplish the national target of 20 million international arrival for this year, although it's not very easy, as our country located in the ring of fire, so we continue to experiencing natural calamities such as earthquakes and some forest fire, which contribute to some cancellation of some tourist visitors in 2019. Nevertheless, up to August 2019, arrival in Indonesia have been increased to 2.6% compared to the same period of last year. Despite of the growing in number of visitors, 90% of the visitor was contribute only from 3 regions, which is Bali, contribute 40%, and Jakarta, 20%, 30%, and the rest 20% from Riau Island. So this figure is not very good from national point of view, as Indonesia is a very large archipelago country. I know that most of the audience, maybe half of you is familiar with Indonesia, but maybe the other not so familiar. And I will take this opportunity to remind everyone that Indonesia is a large country. We are 4th largest country in the world by populations, but still we have it's still nothing compared to China as our champion in population. But still we have over 270 million people living in Indonesia. The country extending 5,000 kilometers from east to west and 1,700 kilometers from north to south. So with total land area, 1.9 million kilometers square and 7.9 million kilometers square if we include the sea area. So one thing that Indonesia is not part of Bali, because that's what my impression after the lunch today, that some of the colleagues think that Indonesia is part of Bali. So actually it's the way around. Bali is part of Indonesia. So it is for Indonesia, I mean, with high multitude of cultural and natural diversity and hundreds of destinations that spread across the archipelago, ranging from Aceh to Papua, while the tourism sector is expected to play the detrimental role in addressing the multidimensional challenge of environment, economy, social nexus. Therefore, the increased visitor in number only will not sufficient to satisfy national strategy to promote tourism as the main instrument for rural area development, at the same time supporting wildlife conservation. For Indonesia, it takes more than just an increase of number of visitors to significantly contribute to sustainable development agenda. It needs to attract high quality tourism if it is expected to provide direct impact toward local economic development. By leveraging from sustainable tourism approach, where wildlife conservation lies as a cross-cutting element of such aforementioned approach, capitalizing from the natural capital of more than 70 Indonesian endemic animals, species, and various plant species distributed across magnificent landscape and ecosystem, we need more than just Bali to ensure that tourism development benefit wider community in Indonesia. That's why our president declared a new program of the new 10 Bali. Can we continue? Yeah. The Ministry of Environment and Forestry, so beside the Ministry of Tourism, we have one Ministry of Environment and Forestry to the Directorate General of Natural Resource and Ecosystem Conservation is managing more than 500 conservation areas with total area size more than 27 million hectares, and 55 of it is national park. 6 of the area has been designated as the World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. 11 areas have been appointed as the World Biosphere Reserve by UNESCO, and 7 Ramsar sites and 6 ASEAN Heritage Park. So DG Conservation also responsible for wildlife protection within and outside conservation areas. Around those conservation areas, there are more than 6,000 villages located, which embodies unique tradition and ethnicities. This map is showing the distribution of the previous map, the distribution of national park in Indonesia, where every of each have its own uniqueness and a big wildlife. And this slide, also some part of Indonesia is marine park, a part of the coral golden triangle, as Professor mentioned. And Indonesia has approximately 50,000 kilometers square of coral reef. It's been around 51% of Southeast Asia region, or 18% of world coral reef are found in Indonesia water. To put into the context, Aceh province in the north tip of Sumatra, most northern and also most, at the same time, most western tip of Indonesia archipelago is province with the 60% forest cover, the only place on Earth where the 4 key species of Sumatra, emblematic species of Sumatra, roaming in the same landscape. In Aceh, we still have Sumatran elephant, Sumatran orangutan, Sumatran tiger, and Sumatran rhino coexist in one landscape. The community habituated in the edge of the forest are among the most remotely located, with minimal access to basic service and limited access urbanized centric economic development. These are the communities contributing to the poverty numbers due to regional disparity. Sustainable wildlife tourism can potentially work as a solution, not only in alleviating poverty, but also expected to address the development gap while serving a bulletproof strategy to prevent encroachment and poaching, and to conserve the wildlife and biodiversity at the same time. Currently, the local community continuously suffer from human-wildlife conflict, especially with the elephant, as also our colleagues mentioned from Botswana and Zimbabwe, also the same experience. But we have different cases where our elephant is much less than the one in Africa. It is critically endangered. We only have 1,700 animals along the Sumatra, and almost half of it in Aceh province. In the future, local community must be actively involved in the management of the landscape and the surrounding natural capital for wildlife conservation and sustainable tourism, with real support from private sector and government, of course. A clear benefit sharing mechanism should be defined as the local sit at the front of wildlife protection and conservation. As a matter of the fact, most of those wildlife, notably elephant and tiger, are roaming outside conservation areas. Or even often also outside, not only conservation area, but outside forest area. So the wildlife actually, as you said, they're roaming inside the private land and also the community land. So the study we did in Aceh, we put a GPS collar in 7 so far, 7 elephant groups. Tell us that more than 50% of the elephant population is actually not only outside conservation area, but outside forest area. That's why, in this case, the local community and concessionaire is very key to be involved in conserving the wildlife, our wildlife. Therefore, also get some benefit out from it. As long as the community could not foresee the benefit to be reaped from living coexistence with the wildlife, it is unrealistic to expect a greater participation to protect and conserve the wildlife from them. So this map actually showing the example of how actually Sumatran elephants population spread in Sumatra. So the red shape is the this is the red shape is the area where the elephant populations, And if you see the yellow one is the concession or the plantation area, and the dark green area is remaining forest. So in the southern part of Sumatra, if you can see, most of the elephant actually is not really inside the forest. They are in the middle of the plantation. That's why we have so high human-elephant conflict incidence. But we still have a good forest cover in Aceh, in the northern tip, where we still have 60% of forest cover in Sumatra. Continue. So, please continue. Yeah, this is the four key species. We have still tigers, but although tiger is very a quick, the gestation period is very, very fast, but we don't have more tiger. In Aceh, we only have 150 individuals and not more than 400 to 500 animals in the whole nation. And also the rhino is also critically endangered, as not like in some areas it's already declared as local extinct, but we still have in Aceh province in Loser ecosystem where half of the population is still viable and the other half is non-viable, and the government already planned to extract all the population in the East Loser to start the captive breeding program. Continue. An elephant, as I mentioned, half of the population of the Sumatran elephant is in Aceh province, and we still also have some orangutan left in Sumatra. So the last, I guess we can just continue to the last. So this is last slide, but also a kind of proposal slides. So moving forward with this notion, a classical challenge of intergovernment coordinations, both horizontally between different ministries and vertically between central government and local governments, and linkage with different players in various sectors remain persists. A joint task force between various line ministries led by Ministry of Environment and Forestry and the Ministry of Tourism is imperative to address such challenge, as many regulatory frameworks need to be harmonized and synchronized to guarantee the coextensive of local economic development and wildlife conservation, bridged by sustainable and responsible high-quality sustainable tourism. We need your support. We need UNWTO support, leadership, and also enlightenment. So to strengthen these high-level coordinations between sectors. So back from this event home, of course, with your support, I would propose to our minister to have a joint task force to strengthen the coordination and guide and gain wider support to conserving wildlife by developing a good standard of sustainable wildlife tourism, learning from you all, from the experience, lesson learned that you already get from in the past. So as we don't start yet, so it's not late. It's late, but we try, because we try to develop 10 more Balis, because as I said, 90% of the current arrival is only contributed from the 3 regions, Bali, Jakarta, and Riau. So we need to bring how the tourism can also support the agenda for wildlife conservation. Maybe for the closing, allow me to show you the short video. Can you play? This is from Aceh. Just the video. Inside the, inside the 100. Yeah, sorry. Can you play this? The voice? No? Okay, I guess. That's fine. Yeah, again, the technology is not on our side. That's okay. But I guess that is all from us, from Indonesia. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wadi, for the presentation. We have one last presentation today. This is the presentation of Mr. Mohamed Sinad, who is the Environment Officer. Okay. No. It's okay. It's okay. Well, we'll not play. We're just gonna do the presentation now. It's fine. Sorry for the mishap. Yeah, we're just gonna have 2 minutes to bring back the computer. Thank you. Now it's here. Thank you. Sorry for the troubles with the technology today. It's been a difficult day. So this is Mr. Mohamed Sinan, Environment Officer of the Ministry of Tourism of Maldives, who will be giving the last presentation of the day.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mohamed Sinan. I will talk about you regarding the marine life in the Maldives and the conservations that we are doing in the Maldives. Please. Just a quick facts about the Maldives. Maldives is a very small country with a land area of just 1% of the land and 90% is water. In compared to the size, we cannot say that we are small, but we are a big ocean country. We are a big ocean country, and it is the length is like 1,200 kilometers from north to the south, and 860 kilometers from the west to the east. So it's a big country, ocean-based big country. The population is 355,000 people. We are small in number and we are small in the land area, but we are big in the ocean. Maldives sits in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and we have a number of islands, 1,200 islands, which are very small. It's scattered all over across the Indian Ocean. So basically we have got large marine species, and the marine life is very diverse in the Maldives. So in Maldives, we started the protection of the environment in the later 90s. We started abolition of the coral mining in 1990s, and now we have almost all the marine life species, they are protected. The sharks, turtles, dolphins, whale sharks, the corals, crabs, lobsters, moray eels, all these things are protected species in the Maldives. You cannot export any coral, a single coral piece from Maldives. It is totally prohibited. Please. Protected sites. In the early 90s, Maldives started protecting our marine area. The first protected area is it's called the Sampa region in the Alif Dal Atoll. And the second one is Rastu Madivar, Farkol Island, Sampa area, Addu, and Formula is the latest additions to the protected site areas. And currently the government of the Maldives is working on declaring the Maldives is the whole Maldives is a biosphere reserve. So there is a plan ongoing, and we are working on that. So before 2023, I think we'll be able to declare the whole Maldives as a protected area, protected site. Baitol Biosphere Reserve. This is one of its kind in the Maldives. You will find rays, so many things. Baitol is considered globally significant in terms of its biodiversity, covering approximately 1,397 hectares. That the atoll is represent of Maldives' high diversity of marine species. So this is the area, this atoll is a protected area. We called it the Hanifaru Bay, and you will find these rays, these stingrays, you will find in this area there are cleaning stations, there are what do you call the breeding grounds, and all these things you will find in this area, and this is the most diverse marine area in the Maldives. Sustainable development policies in the Maldives, we have so many policies, the National Development Plan, Tourism Master Plan, we are working on the 5th Master Plan. It will be ready, I think, ready to publish at the end of this year. And National Environmental Protection Law and the National Law on Waste Management. This is one thing that we are very concerned about, the marine pollution throughout the world, because it will create a very, very huge challenge for the Maldives, because we are only 1 meter above the sea level, and we are mostly, our livelihood is basically on the sea. So if the sea level rise, it continues like this at the speed of the current rate, I think we will be having a huge problem. I think we will be the first climate refugees if the current rate goes on. So law on protection of environment in the tourism sector, we started this in 1982. This law came in 1992. Still we are practicing on this. And in Maldives, tourism development started in the 1970s. We started with a group of few Italian people, and our concept is one island, one resort concept. So we build one resort in a single island. So everything is, even the power generation, water supply, staff accommodation, everything has to be on one island, and it is like a small community. So Maldives is a very good example for protection of the environment, and we are very, we have a very high voice in the global context. That's all for me today. Any questions? Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinan. So this presentation closes this last session of the day. Thank you very much for coming and attending the session, both the 3 sessions of this afternoon. And now the international delegates will be led to the Julong Hall for the dinner, which should start at 6. So we can already go there. And then we will have the performance of the Chimelong Circus from 7:30 to 9 p.m. That's it. Thank you very much once again.